Welcome to Dark Side Revelations. I'm Jonathan, that is Alex, and today we are covering Mandalore. We're going into the rise of Mandalore and the fall of Mandalore, everything there is to know about Mandalore. I'm excited for this one. Yeah, obviously, big topic with Filoni's shows and movies coming out right now. Um,
Yes.
so we thought it'd be a good idea to get into it. Uh, we have one piece of Star Wars news, which isn't officially Star Wars news, but uh, earlier this week, the YouTube channel Hello There released a Clone Wars style animation of I forgot the name, but of the
The
Kenobi.
Mustafar
Yeah,
fight
Yeah, the
with
Mustafar.
Anakin and Obi-Wan.
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was pretty awesome.
It was really good. And like I like how the emotion comes across so differently in Clone Wars style. Like obviously the actors are great and like Hayden Christensen, fantastic, right? But like there's something to be said for the way that they're able to convey the different things through animation and they just knocked it out of the park. And it's like a one for one too. Like you can watch the live action and the Clone Wars simultaneously and it all happens perfectly in sync.
Yeah, I I what was I gonna? Oh yeah, I they did the animation like very well. Like you go watch the Clone Wars, like the lightsaber battles, watching that, like the similarity between it. And this was actually announced in 2020. I saw, so this has been a long time coming. I don't,
Wow.
yeah, I don't know how many people worked on it. Obviously, there's credits, but it said there's only one animator, so I don't
I
know.
mean that's probably why it took almost 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, it was really well done, and I saw a tweet that was like, man, I've been waiting for this for like since 2020. I was like, well, it's here. I hope it lived up to your giant expectations you've been building up.
Yep.
Oh man. Okay, hey, that's it for Star Wars news because Star Wars is the employees are still on vacation. They're coming back this week.
Yeah.
But at the time of recording or at the time of release, they will be back. So hopefully, we have some more exciting news for you next week. Um, let's get into Mandalore. I would like to start by explaining something about Star Wars first. The history of Mandalore and everything surrounding Mandalore is light. Not that and
Yeah.
light in canon. There's a lot of legends. There's a lot of non-canon material like comics and books. So I want to add a disclaimer here, and I want to make a I want to say a difference here between canon and non-canon. Um, so canon is everything in the expanded universe released past April 25th, 2014. Why that date, you ask? Well, it's because in on April 25th, 2014, Lucasfilm marked everything that was currently released that was with the Star Wars name as Legends. Um, they were preparing for the release of the next trilogy, the Skywalker saga, and they wanted to start fresh. So anything that wasn't those six movies that were out at the time, the Clone Wars animated series, and a select few books and comics, I couldn't really find which ones they were, was marked as non-canon and rebranded as Legends. Um, so we're gonna disclaimer today what is canon versus what is Legends, just so you know. Uh, the thing about it's Legends is a little cloudy because a bunch of canon books reference the Legends stuff, so they're kind of intertwined, but it's not what Lucasfilm and Star Wars and Disney has told us is canon. Uh, we'll tell you when that is canon and not.
The big thing was that Lucasfilm did it so that it would give Disney like the flexibility to do what they wanted with the new content, right? Like
Yep.
all the last three movies that came out and some of the stuff that happens in the Mandalorian show and in Ahsoka and stuff. They don't have to explain themselves. They don't have to go back to the books and the movies and prove everything. It's just this is what it is now. You
Yep.
can fill in the gaps how you want.
Yeah. Big controversy at the time, and probably still.
Yeah,
People really didn't like that choice.
it doesn't bother me. I appreciate it for what it is, and I'm
And
not
yeah,
like it has to be canon or it's not good.
I mean, yeah,
So
I still appreciate the legend stuff. It was canon for a while, so. Anyways, let's go into the history of Mandalore. This was taken out of this beautiful book right here, Star Wars Timelines. It's backwards, but you can picture it. It's a Star Wars timelines from the time before the High Republic to the fall of the First Order. This is a book made by 5 people, I think. The authors say there's 5 of them that did this, and it's all the canon in Star Wars put into a massive timeline, and it's awesome. This is where we get
yeah,
our timeline we've done in these 3 episodes. Um, it was $20 at Costco, $30 on Amazon. It's worth the purchase.
yep. And it's one of the things that got us to be like, all right, let's do the podcast.
Yeah, like if you just here, I'll just open to a page. It's just
See, isn't it
timeline.
Daddy Kenobi? But
Sorry, audio
everything
listeners.
about like they put so much work into making sure everything was in timeline order, but they also had some amazing graphics to go with it that they pulled from the
Yep.
movies and the comics and the TV shows and everything. Like it's just a really pleasing book to look at and read, whether you like Star Wars or not.
Yeah,
And
they,
Jonathan,
it's impressive.
you saw it at Costco where they also had a Marvel one, right?
Yeah, there's a Marvel one I saw there. They're two the same thing, just Marvel timeline. Um, I think it's worth the purchase. Not sponsored. Uh, I mean, it's such a feat to collect everything in Star Wars canon, all the books and comics and stuff, and then they made it, like you said, visually appeasing. It's a good book
Yeah.
to look at.
It's not just a history book, it's actually nice to look at. And honestly, you just have it out on the counter and hey, what's
Yeah.
that? And as long as your friends don't have anything to do for the next 4 hours, you have something to talk about.
Good conversation started for Star Wars.
All right, well, let's get into the history of Mandalore from what you pulled from timelines.
Yeah. So what I this is a thing going in. So this is Star Wars canon. What was canon in there was around 1050 BBY, Tar Vizsla of House Vizsla, we'll get into that later, becomes the first Mandalorian Jedi. This was a big thing. We'll get into a lot of wars, but the Republic and the Jedi have fought as long as the Mandalorian have existed. They were the he was the first of the Mandalorian warriors to be admitted as a member of the Jedi Order, and at the same time was also when Tar Vizsla created his lightsaber, which is the infamous dark saber, the symbol of leading the Mandalore at the current time. Um, that was pretty much all that was in the timelines book, other than a civil war in 19 BBY. But in Legends, it is rumored around 9,991 BBY was when the Mandalorian were first created, and a Legends War is 3964 to 3960 BBY was the first Mandalorian Republic War, which I will get into later. Um, so we got there's this again, so much Legends that the timelines book didn't have a lot, but
Yeah.
it was
I don't know if we said
still
it earlier. The timelines book is only canon. They only put
yeah.
canon events in there. Like everything that's in that, all I don't know, 300 pages or whatever it is.
It's like
Honestly, I think
550 or something like
it's
that.
more than that. Like it's a hefty book. Like all of that is canon.
Yeah. So before we get into the wars and the dark saber and all that, let's talk about what the the Mandalorians are. What are their religion? What do they follow?
Yeah. So the Mandalorian religion, as far back, so what I'm saying right now is found in both canon and legends, and I pulled as much of it from true canon as I could. Um, the Mandalorian religion was formed around the year 4000 BBY. So, as far as religions go, it's not that old. Um, it's formed by the ancient Mandalorians. It focuses on strength and growth, with the primary means being conflict or war. They had 3 gods that they worshipped, and I'm going to try to pronounce them, but they're tough. So the first god is Arasum. he was the sloth god, or the god of just like stagnation, I guess. The next one was Had Haran, which is the trickster god, which is like if something happened to any of the Mandalorians or something didn't go your way, you blamed it on him. And the last one, which is like the most revered god, like the one that they focus most of their time on, was Kad Harangir. And he was the god of change and growth by means of destruction. So that's why, like, when you watch The Mandalorian and he has the line where he says, I'm a Mandalorian, weapons are part of my religion, that's where that comes from. Um, the majority of the religion was focused towards Katarangir, and for many years the Mandalorians conducted conquests, and like conquest is like galaxy wide destruction just because they could. Um, After a long time, they eventually, they calmed it down, backed it down a little bit, instead of taking the words as literal translations of "you need to kill people to be better." They took it more as "you need to have trials to become stronger." Um, they eventually allowed other species to join their religion, should they choose to obey the tenets, and the tenets are referred to as the Resonare. I couldn't find a legitimate list of like what the tenets were, but like one of the things that the Children of the Watch really bring back into it is not allowing yourself to reveal, like the whole thing, like you don't take your helmet off.
Yeah.
Um, and part of that is the focus after they dialed it back from the literal translation was they were working towards Manda, which is part of Mandalorian was Manda, or the spiritual collective oversoul of the Mandalorians. What it truly meant to be a Mandalorian, you strive towards in your life, and then when you died, you weren't a singular soul. You basically joined this collective pool of souls. Like if you watch like Hercules, there's that point where he's like dangling over this pool, and there's a bunch of souls spinning around in there. That's kind of what that's like. But it was a positive thing. It wasn't in Hades. Um, if you were deemed unworthy, or you were caught not following the tenets of the Resonare, you were declared Dar Manda, which is soulless. That was a huge deal. It brought you like great dishonor, like when Din Djarin had to go bathe in the waters and be reborn again. It was because he was on his way to being declared Darmanda, and once you are declared that, you can't come back from that. You're basically denied transference into the Manda afterlife, and you're basically just an outcast for the rest of forever. Uh, what we see in the show or shows is the Children of the Watch, which is what Mando or Din Djarin was a part of, the religious sect that he was a part of. They attempted to resurrect the ancient religion in the ways that they were going back towards more of the literal translations and not the touchy feely. Um, Not everything has to be so on point kind of stuff. Like that's like basics of the Mandalorian religion. You don't need to get into all their like specific practices and everything. Like the big thing is like they fought people for a long time in the name of their gods. And that's why the Jedi had such a problem with them. And we'll get into that in the Jedi War stuff. And why it was such a big deal for Tar Vizsla to join the Jedi when he did.
I didn't. Yeah, that's interesting because learning about the Mandalorian, their entire like life is based in warrior and fighting. So came from their religion and their gods, huh?
Yeah, so like it wasn't just like respect and honor and everything. It was part of their religion was to be a warrior, but also grow through the process of your trials.
Cool.
And like
What a weird way
the
to.
different the different clans went about it differently, and like Jonathan, you did the research on all the clans. If you want to
Yeah,
get into some of that,
yeah. So there's a lot of clans. If you let's see, there's a lot of them. We've seen
yeah,
most of them, and but so we've seen them in let's see, the Clone Wars show, the Rebel show, the Mandalorian, obviously.
yeah,
Um, but there are two. If you watch those shows, there's two different things. There's houses and clans. Um, a clan is a group of Mandalorians with shared beliefs, led by one leader. So you have they come together and they're like, okay, we're gonna most of the time we're gonna fight together.
yeah,
We're gonna go conquer this planet together. And then a house is a group of clans with shared beliefs, led by there's one leader of the house, and then they have their clan leader. And that reminds me, just because I'm reading the books right now, the Nile. If you've read the High Republic books, they have the Tempest Runners, and then they have the Eye of the Nile, which leads to Tempest Runners. There's probably millions of examples of that in Star Wars, but I'm just reading those books right now.
so
So
yeah,
that's
but
what
it's
I'm
like
reminded of.
the storms and the strikes and
Yeah,
and all that. Yeah,
yeah,
we'll get into them in another episode. That's definitely worth it. But
yeah.
you want to finish the High Republic books first, so that we don't ruin anything.
I just finished the Jedi. It was really good. Man,
I'm most of the way through the second book right now.
nice. Back to the Mandalorian.
Yeah, we're getting sidetracked.
So there's three houses that we know about: House Kryze, House Vizsla, and House Cast. House Kryze was the royal family of Mandalore. This
That's
has
Mandalore, the world, right?
yeah, Mandalore being the planet. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, that had two notable members, Bo-Katan and Duchess Satine, are both from this house. There was a rivalry between them, which we'll get into later. Um, there's House Vizsla, which is one of the most powerful factions. After the fall of the royal family, House Vizsla kind of took over. Um, they led Mandalore for a while, meaning the planet and the throne. So they were in charge of the Mandalorian people, and this is Tar Vizsla's house. He created House Vizsla. He created the Darksaber, and we'll get into this later. But eventually got passed down to Pre Vizsla, which we see in the shows. And then finally, there's House Cast. We don't know anything about them. We know that Clan Rook was a part of this house, and that they pledged their loyalty to Bo-Katan when they try to overthrow the Empire's rule of Mandalore. That's it. That is between canon and legends, by the way. We don't know anything else.
I kind of feel like House Cast is just all the regular dudes, right? Like
Yeah, the ones
House
you just see in the
Vizsla for the
galaxy.
longest time was like the elite warriors, and House Kryze was the royal families and the protectors of the elite, and House Cast is just like everybody else.
That's
Everyone
a fair
is just
point.
not special.
That's a good that's a good theory. So the house. So some houses have clans, and some clans don't have houses. You can be a clan without a house, and you can be a clan in a house. Um, some of the most popular clans. We're gonna start with New Mandalorians. The New Mandalorians were featured in the Clone Wars animated series, and this was Duchess Satine's clan. When she was controlling Mandalore, she led the New Mandalorians, and they were the opposite of the traditional clans. They dedicated themselves to peace and pacifism. After the Mandalorian Civil Wars, Duchess Satine claimed the throne and created the New Mandalorians. She saw the destruction of the Mandalorians' warrior heritage, or saw the destruction that the warrior heritage brought them, and decided to create one of peace. This didn't go over well. Anyone who didn't agree with leaving their heritage was banished from Mandalore. A lot of people did that, and that brings us to Death Watch. Death Watch, I think, is the most popular clan. If you watched the animated series,
Yeah.
if you just watched the Filoni live action, it's probably Children of the Watch, and sometimes Death Watch, but they don't have such a prominent spot. They were the first to be introduced. Pre Vizsla is their current leader, and or was their leader. It's not.
Was.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Pre Vizsla was their leader. Bo-Katan was in this clan. She's now the leader. And they teamed up with Darth Maul to overthrow Duchess Satine's rule. Evil Duchess Satine. Peace? We don't want that. Maul killed Duchess Satine in this fight. We'll get into this. It's a civil war we'll cover. And Bo-Katan vowed to avenge her sister, which was a big thing. Because one, nobody knew Bo-Katan was part of House Kryze and was royal family. And didn't know that she was the sister to Duchess Satine. We'll get more into that later, though. We're just doing an overview of the clans. The next one, Children of the Watch, is a clan / offshoot religion of the Mandalorians. This is where Din Djarin was. This is an extremist cult of Mandalore, and they wanted to reestablish the ancient Mandalorian creed, going into the religion you were talking about. They wanted to bring back, the ancient creed and the ancient religion, vowing to never remove one's helmet in front of the others. And this is where "this is the way" comes from. The infamous quote. This was used to kind of back up each other. It was a cult, so they're kind of like taken away from the rest of the Mandalorian. But this was used to, in cult fashion, they need to back each other up here. So this is the way. It was like, we're doing it right. Don't listen to anyone else, right?
Yeah. And it was also the "this is the way" also pays homage to the religion as far as the we choose violence and use it, right? And the Children of the Watch also reinstated the whole taking of foundlings and everything.
Yeah.
And that's why Grogu was able to join the Mandalorians. So when he became a foundling, that was part of their religious process that the Children of the Watch reenacted to
you see that
sustain and grow their religion.
Yeah, you see more religion in season 3. Like, you can't be a Mandalorian. He hasn't said the creed. He hasn't taken the creed, right? More religion that they're trying to bring back in the Children of the Watch. We have Clan Ren up next, another big one. It was Sabine Wren's clan from Star Wars Rebels. And we don't know much about Clan Ren before the Empire took over Mandalore, but we do know that Clan Ren sided with the Empire as during the takeover process, and that's why Sabine left, and that's why she didn't want to talk about her Mandalorian history for the longest time, and she was ashamed of it. Season 4 of Rebels showed Sabine convincing Clan Ren and the others to fight against the Empire. There's a couple episodes about it. Team up with Bo-Katan and a bunch of the other clans and House Cast and all this. And we'll get into a bunch of clans that... There's a lot of clans that all we know is that they teamed up with Bo-Katan to fight the Empire.
Yeah.
Probably all the ones in House Cast. And I guess the second to last big one would be Clan Saxon. They are part of House Vizsla, led by Gar Saxon. He was a member of Death Watch. I can't remember. Did he lead Death Watch at one point? Do you know?
I don't think he did, because when Pre-Vizsla died, that's when Maul took over.
Yeah.
So it would have been after Maul's death, or his Maul.
Yeah, we'll get into that. But
them.
Saxon died during the fight with Maul's. Yeah, he wouldn't have led it.
Yeah, he never did.
Yeah. So this was I think the most powerful clan of House Vizsla. They were portrayed as the enemies in the fight. Well, they sided with the Empire. So, they sided with Maul and the Empire in the siege of Mandalore, or sided with Maul in the siege of Mandalore and the Empire to rule Mandalore after. And he was seen as a traitor. The whole clan was seen as a traitor if you stayed with Clan Saxon. And he died in season 4 of Rebels in the fight. In the 19 BBY Civil War, which we'll get into. We have a few clans we don't know anything about. We have Clan Elder, which all we know is that they side with Bo-Katan to fight against the Empire, and same with Clan Rook. They also side with Bo-Katan. And then we know a little bit about this next one, Clan Awad, we'll call it. Awood. They split into two factions during the Clone Wars. There's like an offshoot, kind of like the Children of the Watch. They split off from Mandalore. And the Splinter faction was exiled from Mandalore, but did not seek revenge like Death Watch did. They were content with their new life, and they eventually helped out the Rebel Alliance, building up the Rebel Alliance after, the fight back against the Empire. And then we have a big one, but we don't know anything about them, Clan Fett. Obviously, that would be Jango Fett's clan, along with his clone son, Boba Fett. We don't know much about them, but
I guess you could argue that Clan Fett is the largest because of all the clones.
that's a good point. Are the clones part of Clan Fett?
No, they're not. They're not.
That's
it's more like he went through the trials and everything as far as like the Mandalorian code and the religious stuff. So he earned his own title and started his own clan. He just never had the chance to build it up.
Yeah.
Thanks to Mace Windu.
we need an offshoot book or series or something about the Fetts. Yeah. And then finally, the last clan we know of, the infamous Clan Mudhorn. There are two members in this clan. We have Din Djarin and Grogu. They were created in season, that would have been 2, or was that 1? No, it would have been 1. Season 1. I think.
He was a clan of 1, technically. If you're going off when he earned the sigil, it was the first season, but Grogu didn't join it until the 3rd season.
Yeah, the 3rd. Yeah, that's true. And it was created after Grogu saved him from the Mudhorn, and you have the armor create his shoulder piece. I forget the name of this symbol, and they declared them a clan of 1, and then eventually 2, part of Children of the Watch. That was cool. I was kind of confused when watching that the first time. I'm gonna be honest. It was also I watched The Mandalorian for the first time in a plane when it was dark, and it's a dark show.
Yes, it is.
That was my main complaint watching season 1.
And I'm sure that when Acolyte comes out, it's going to be even darker.
Yeah,
we can only hope. 2024, baby, here we come.
I also hope it's darker in the sense of content too.
Yes. I think I've said it before. I really wish we could get into like a rated R Star Wars film.
Yeah.
Focused on the Sith, the dark side, and just all the underbelly stuff. Like even like bounty hunter stuff that happens.
It would be great. I would have to wait until it came on Disney Plus. I guess. Well, I would probably be 18 by the time that would come out.
I say by the time we come out with that, you'll be old enough.
Yeah.
But before we get sidetracked again, let's talk about the Mandalorian wars, like the ones in the far past.
Yeah. So first off, we have this one's just we have records of 2 wars. We have one in 19 BBY, that's canon. This one's shown in the Clone Wars show. And then we have one in 3964 to 3960 BBY, which is Legends. It's literally just called the Mandalorian Wars. I tried to
the
Google.
fact that it happened is canon, but all the details is
yes,
Legends, right?
It happened. We know it happens. It references it in canon, but we don't. The battles I'm about to talk about are Legends. We don't know the details. So let's talk about the first one, and the Mandalorian Wars was the first battle between Mandalorians and the Jedi/Republic, and this happened because the Mandalorians were claiming planets in the Outer Rim. They at this point they've moved from destruction, like you talked about, to conquering. They were proving their power, but they weren't just wiping people, right?
Right.
They were conquering planets, all the unclaimed Outer Rim territories and planets. And then eventually they got greedy and they tried to interfere with the core. And as governments do today, once it touches them themselves and not, then they care about it. Uh,
Hmm.
so then that started the
You're
first.
fine over there. Just don't touch my stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Once they started touching their stuff, then they started the first war between them. Um, I thought I had the name of the first battle on here, but I don't. Um, this gave, or sorry, they moved to the core and this started the first battle. The Mandalorians won this first battle, and it gave the Mandalorians a very strong control of the Outer Rim. Because obviously they kind of got pushed out of the core worlds right away. Um, but once they got pushed into the core worlds, once they moved to their territory in the Outer Rim, they just won the first battle, and they kept this strong control of the Outer Rim until the end of the Mandalorian Wars. Um, and there are lots of wars. I think there's like 6 or 7 in these 4 years, but there's
Yeah.
very little information on them. We know about the first battle and the last battle pretty much. The last battle was named the Battle of Mandalore 5. And this was a long time coming, a big trap set by the Republic. They lured them into to the Mandalorians to the planet of Mandalore 5, and it actually was a stalemate. But the stalemate ended up in the perfect spot for the Republic because they were pushed. The Mandalorian were pushed into Mandalore 5's orbit, which is the big goal of this. They didn't really want to wipe them with normal fighting in this war. They were in the right position for their trap, and I think this is a pretty violent move from the Republic. They used a mass destruction weapon created by the Republic called the Mass Shadow Generator. The Mass Shadow Generator was a weapon which used the unique gravitational fields of Mandalore 5 to create a gravitational vortex to destroy almost all of the Mandalorian ships.
Yeah. So, like in regular universe terms, they basically made a tiny black hole
Yeah,
and used it as a weapon
and just
and
like
sent
sucked the
waves throughout the black hole.
yeah. I don't. I couldn't figure out. I tried to figure out if the Republic like got a lot of damage from this vortex or not. I couldn't really find that. But very very few Mandalorians survived. I think they were the lead Mandalorian were the Neo Crusaders at the time. That was like most of the Mandalorian. There was a few still doing their own thing, but most of the Mandalorian were doing a practice called Neo. They were Neo Crusaders, and that part of they were pretty much wiped out, and uh, they were assumed, as the Jedi do, to pretty much just not be a threat anymore, which was true for about another 4,000 years. But before we get into this war, the dark saber is a big part of this war. Huge part of
Yes.
the 19 BBY Mandalorian Civil War. So if you want to give us some information about the dark saber first, that would be awesome.
Yeah. So the dark saber, like as a weapon, is a Beskar hilted lightsaber created by the first ever Mandalorian Jedi, whose name's Tar Vizsla. It was actually created in 1035 BBY. So
Okay.
he was accepted by the Jedi in 1050, and he made it. He made one lightsaber, and then later he made this one to pay homage to his heritage, which is very common for Jedi. Like a lot of Wookiee um, Jedi have made their lightsaber hilts out of the Rocher trees and stuff like that. Or
Yep.
um, Anakin was even afforded the chance to take some of the metal or some of the sand from Tatooine and build it
He
into part
loves
of his
sand.
lightsaber. Yeah, he loves sand. Big fan. Um, but after Tar Vizsla died, the Jedi kept the dark saber, his lightsaber, in essentially the archives. Not just a storage room. Like they displayed it. Right, it was a big deal for a Mandalorian to join the Jedi Order. Um, so it was something you could like walk by in the library and be like, oh, this is a nice little piece of history, but it's also a weapon. So if you want to pick it up and use it, that's cool too. Um, After his death, when it was being kept in the archives, it was quote unquote liberated by Clan Vizsla during a raid on the Jedi Temple. The Vizsla clan used it to unite and rule Mandalore and its people until Pre Vizsla lost it, rightfully lost it in the eyes of the Darksaber, uh, to Darth Maul. So Darth Maul was actually the rightful leader of the Death Watch, the Mandalorians, and all of Mandalore for a short period of time.
Give us the rightfully taken and gained. How does that work with the dark saber? How do you
Okay, so this
gain
kind of
the
goes
dark
back into
saber?
like the religious aspect, the warring religious aspect of the Mandalorians. If you remember what we talked about with the Sith, where yeah, you can gain power, but if you're not respected, it doesn't matter. It works the same way with the dark saber. The dark saber was viewed as a tool and an instrument of power, but it was also it was like a crown essentially. Um, in order to earn it, you had to defeat whoever the wielder was in ritual combat, which is portrayed in the show when I believe it's Din is challenged by, I don't remember his name, the bigger guy who
Isn't it
always
Moff
had a
Gideon?
problem with him. No, no, because
Gideon
Din.
challenges him at some point. I thought.
I thought one of the Mandalorians challenged him. Either way, we'll
Yeah,
get
I
into
think.
it. Moff, they
Oh
do
yeah,
fight.
when
Moff
he's talking to the
challenges
armorer,
him
he
for the
gets
dark saber.
challenged.
That happens, but I'm pretty sure the the guy that's with the armorer all the time, he
Yeah,
challenges him for the
I
dark
remember
saber.
that. Yeah.
So Maul fought Pre Vizsla and earned the dark saber, and we'll get into why this is important in a minute. So Maul used it to lead the Death Watch and lost it in a battle with Palpatine, which isn't portrayed in anything other than comics, when he was on Dathomir, and it was kept in the Night Sister layer on Dathomir for a long time until Sabine Wren picked it up. And this is portrayed in the Rebels TV show. Sabine uh, tried to train with it. She wasn't a very strong Jedi at all. Um, I hope that changes in the show. Like I really do. But part of why it's important that she wasn't a strong Jedi is that you can't just pick this weapon up and use it. The dark saber has an element of attunement, or it almost like it has a personality. Where if you train with it and you understand why you're using it and you get proficient with it, it can actually feel lighter in your hand to use. Which is why, like when you see Din use it for the first time, he's like fighting the dark
Yeah.
saber and it looks super heavy, and that's because it is. The kyber crystal inside the dark saber is literally making itself heavier, making it like,
Yeah, your
am I good
thoughts
now?
and your feelings and like force energy, even if you're not a Jedi, like just the force inside of you flows through
Yeah.
the crystal, and it literally like reads everything you're feeling and your thoughts. So if you don't really know the dark saber, it's not gonna help you out.
And it's like if you're also conflicted about using which is what Sabine's problem was, and Din had a problem with it too, until he accepted it as his weapon. Um, so Sabine didn't really take to it, and she eventually gave it to Bo-Katan, which, is it a problem? Is it not?
It
You
did
can
become
kind
a
of go
problem.
either way. It wasn't a problem then, because she was essentially, when she was given it, she was the rightful leader of Mandalore because her sister died.
Yep.
That happened afterwards, if I'm not mistaken. And to give the leader of Mandalore the dark saber, it's like, should they have it? Yeah, you can just fight someone and win with the dark saber, and that's not a problem. But she was given the dark saber, so Bo-Katan tried to give it to Moff Gideon so that they wouldn't glass Mandalore. It didn't work. Then Moff Gideon was the owner of the dark saber. He too had a hard time using it, better than Sabine did though. Um, Gideon lost it to Din, who rightfully held it for the longest time out of anyone that we've talked about, other than Pre Vizsla. He had it for a long time. Um, Din lost it when he was in battle with one of those beasts and he was incapacitated. And while he was incapacitated, Bo-Katan defeated that beast. And that comes into play later when Bo-Katan is trying to stand up and be like, hey, I want to be the rightful leader of the Mandalorians. I want to bring everybody together. And everyone's like, well, he has the Darksaber and you don't. So what are we going to do here? And that's when Din stands up. He's like, well, I was the rightful holder of the Darksaber. This thing defeated me. She defeated it. So here you go. It's yours. I don't need it anymore. And then they're like, oh, okay. Yeah, that works for me. And then they're just kind of like, all right, the combat string checks out. We're good. And then, like, just a fun fact about the Darksaber, it's slightly shorter than a regular lightsaber is. There's an actual measurement of how long the Darksaber. It's like 90 and a 98.9 centimeters or something, where an actual lightsaber is a little over like 4.5 feet. So this one's just under, it's like right at 3 feet. So it's a little bit more mobile.
Yeah,
and
it's used to emulate the weapons he knew already.
Yeah, and it's a katana style saber, and it has a slotted emitter, which makes it come out skinnier, looking like an actual sword. And it's because of that, it emits a higher pitched sound than regular lightsabers do. And the reason that it's black is because it's a chemical reaction that happens with the kyber crystal reacting with the Beskar hilt. And like all lightsabers, it's never been able to penetrate Beskar, but it is the only one that's been able to heat it up to like red hot. So it's the closest thing that ever came to actually harming someone with Beskar. But like that's the nitty gritty of the Darksaber. It was passed down the generations of House Vizsla over those roughly 1,000 years until Pre got it, but we don't have all the holders of the Darksaber. The big ones are Tar Vizsla, Pre Vizsla, then Maul, then Sabine, then Bo-Katan, and Gideon, and then Din, and then Bo-Katan again. And as of right now, no one else has it because it was destroyed in that battle on Mandalore. Or so we think.
It's true.
I'm holding out hope that it's not actually destroyed. They're going to go back and find it in the wreckage.
Hey, they need another season and a movie.
I know. You can't just throw away one of the coolest weapons they ever made. Anyway.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now that we know about the Darksaber, let's get into where the war that we know about, where the Darksaber has the most influence. The 19 BBY, Mandalorian Civil War. This is completely canon. This shows up in the canon shows. This starts off with in the show with Pre Vizsla finding Maul and Savage oppressed on an escape pod, and he recruits them to take back Mandalore and kill Kenobi in the process. Or promises that they could try to kill Kenobi in the process because they have to get Maul on board somehow. He doesn't really care about Mandalore. He cares about Kenobi. Such a disappointing end for Maul, by the way. Dies instantly.
He had a rough go.
So then, at some point, Pre Vizsla imprisons Maul and Savage. A lot of these points were taken out of the Timelines book. So we don't. There's episodes about this if you want to go watch it. It's in Clone Wars. You can go watch it. Good war. But they eventually escape and Pre Vizsla dies to Maul. You know, betrayal, but to betrayal. And that's where Maul gets the Darksaber. Um, and he attempts to rule Death Watch, but some members refuse. Bo-Katan, and it's like I think it's I'm pretty sure the she has like her loyalists called the Night something like
The Night Owls.
NIT Night Owls, yeah,
Night Owls, yep.
NITE Owls. So her and her Night Owls leave, and where they refuse to follow Maul. And then some a bit of time later, it's all 19 BBY, so not too much time later, Maul eventually lures Kenobi and some other Jedi to Mandalore, and this is uh, at this point Maul fights the Jedi, and they're kind of like weak on the ground, and this is when he kills Duchess Satine. Um, and this is a big moment actually here. Duchess Satine dies, and this is where Bo-Katan reveals that she is Satine's sister, and decides to fight back and avenge her. Um, People didn't know this. I don't really think anyone knew this from my memory, if I recall correctly. But this is kind of the healing part of their relationship of Satine and Bo-Katan, where she isn't like ashamed of House Kryze anymore and decides to fight back. And then this whole war ends in the Siege of Mandalore. This is where the 501st Legion splits up. This is where Ahsoka's stormtroopers come from. Ahsoka goes back with Bo-Katan to Coruscant, and she meets Anakin again, and she gets her lightsabers, and then sadly, they can't all go because this is the start of Order 66. This is when, um, this is when Palpatine gets captured and starts the whole third movie. Sadly, it was actually it was a sad moment in the show because the relationship was healing. Ahsoka was back, and suddenly Anakin and Kenobi can't join them. So because they have to go save the Chancellor in Coruscant. And I don't really want to get into the fight, but there was a big fight, and Maul was captured. And this is on the way to return Maul back to Bo-Katan and the rest of the 501st that was alive, and Ahsoka were on their way to return Maul to Coruscant, trophy. And that's when Order 66 happened. It's a sad moment.
Yeah, so like Maul and Ahsoka, I don't remember one of the clone commanders. They were all together when Order 66 came out.
Yep.
And Maul survived it with Ahsoka.
Yeah, they're like in a hangar, aren't they? When it gets issued, I kind of remember.
Yeah, they're in a hangar, and I'm pretty sure they jump in some kind of ship.
Yeah.
And 86 that place, but that's in Clone Wars.
It is. They have to. Ahsoka struggles with this, right? Because it's the people she knew, and Rex is. I don't remember. Does he have an inhibitor chip, or does he malfunction?
No,
I kind of remember him fighting.
He was intelligent enough to realize that it didn't make sense.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking. I kind of remember him starting to fight, but then Ahsoka was like, no, don't do this. But anyway, she struggles to fight, and they escape, and then they come back, and they do the little thing with the sticks and with the helmets on top of all her clones that she had to kill to get out of there safely.
Yeah.
That's in Clone Wars. It's at the end of the show, last season.
Yeah,
you can go.
It's one
you
of
can
the
go
last
watch
things
that.
To happen. Because then it rolls into the Bad Batch, where Bad Batch basically starts right before Order 66 and follows those clones immediately after.
Yeah. That's all I'm gonna say about that war. It's pretty well known. And then there's one other war. It's the Mandalorian. It's another Mandalorian and Jedi war. This battle was also canon, but the details are legends again. It was sometime after 1050 BBY, and this was when this is the whole seizing of the Darksaber and stuff happened. Um, there's very little info about it. It allowed for Mandalorian technological advancement. That's all it said. I assume it would be Beskar, maybe. I don't know.
No, they had Beskar at that point because Beskar is one of the native metals on Mandalore, and that's why it was such a big
That,
deal for them.
yeah, that's fair.
But the
Um,
big technological advancement is this is where the jetpacks and all the special weaponry,
okay.
that's where that stuff came from.
It just said technological advancement to fight the Jedi, to go against the Jedi's
Yeah.
unknown powers. That makes sense.
Actually,
Um,
during the Mandalorian Jedi War, the one that you're talking about right now,
yep.
is when one of the weapons that was outlawed across the galaxy was used against the Jedi, and it's basically a shotgun. It fired an actual kinetic pellet.
Uh-huh.
I'm just going to call it a bullet. This is
Yep.
what it is. It fired an actual bullet at a Jedi, and you see when Jedi, they deflect bullets, it just hits them and rebounds. Well, what happens when you hit something that's metal? It splits. So instead of deflecting it, it just made shrapnel, and that's part of the reason why it was outlawed for such a long time. But it was outlawed because it was used against the Jedi by the Mandalorians.
Okay. Should have saved it for a better time, more effective time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have like no info on this. This is like what Alex is talking about. It's just that the fall of the Old Republic, which is how House Vizsla was able to take the Darksaber, was because the Old Republic was falling. So it wasn't very strong. So they were able to invade the Jedi Temple. And this is the battle that scorched Mandalore, leaving it as a desert wasteland. I couldn't find information about how it was done. It just said it was scorched.
In typical Empire fashion, I'm going to assume some sort of a super weapon that
Yeah,
may or may not have used kyber crystals, because that's just how they do things.
probably. And then the warrior clans of Mandalore were assumed dead because they scorched their entire planet. That's a fair assumption.
Mm-hmm. Mandalorians are like cockroaches, man. You can't kill them for anything. They come back.
They'll always come back. That is all I have in the Mandalorian Wars. Alex, do you have anything else you want to add?
Honestly, I just really appreciate the Mandalorians for what they are. Um, they're bounty hunters, sure, because that's just kind of it's an easy way to make money. But they stand for something, and everyone knows that they stand for something, and it's not a negative thing, right? We have trials through combat, but they're not actively on a conquest. They're not trying to impose their will on the galaxy. It's just we're good at things and we believe this, and if you need some help, give us a call, and if it aligns with our beliefs, we'll help you.
Yep.
They're like Robin Hood in bulletproof armor.
and lightsaber proof armor.
Yeah, that too. I mean, that's always helpful, right?
I think it's interesting how they've just been warriors from the very beginning, and that's like what you probably like 6,000 years. They've just been.
And they were thought to be extinguished, 4 separate times, and each time they weren't.
It shows that they're not the strongest, but they're resilient, and they'll come back and they'll do what they want, right? They'll follow their religion and they'll impose order and do their warrior stuff.
Yeah.
That I think that's all we have for this episode. Next week, well, that's a mystery, isn't it? We're not going to tell you. We're not going to tell you what we're doing next week. It's a surprise. You can find me on Twitter at the Jonathan J. Where can we find you?
I got Twitter, and I'm at Darth Pauling.
We'll see you next week every Wednesday, and we're also on YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok, all at DS Revelations on the bottom of your screen right there, or audio listeners at DS Revelations. We're posting shorts there on TikTok and YouTube, so go watch them. More Star Wars content. And we'll see you next Wednesday.
This is the way.